David Parker Ray, known as the Toy Box Killer, was born on November 6, 1939 in Belen, New Mexico. He was an American serial rapist, torturer, and suspected serial killer who targeted women in New Mexico from the 1950s to the 1990s. Ray kidnapped many women, sometimes for months, and tortured them in a trailer he called the Toy Box. His cruel acts included sexual abuse, whipping, binding, and electrocution. He recorded his torture sessions on audio tapes. The Toy Box was a special-built torture chamber with tools like gynecological chair, whips, chains, pulleys, and a homemade electrocution machine. On March 22, 1999, a shocking scene unfolded on a rural road in New Mexico. A naked woman with a padlock collar was frantically running and begging for help. This woman was 22-year-old Cynthia Vigil Jaramillo, who had been kidnapped several days earlier. Jaramillo had somehow managed to escape her captors. After obtaining the key to her chains, she used an ice pick to fight off one of her abductors. As she ran down the dirt road, Jaramillo approached passing vehicles, desperately seeking assistance. Eventually, she reached a trailer with an open door, and a woman inside called the police, exposing a horrific kidnapping and sexual assault operation. The mastermind behind this criminal enterprise was a 59-year-old David Parker Ray, a state park employee who may have been fantasizing about sexually torturing people since his teenage years in the 1950s. Ray committed his crimes in a 22-foot wide trailer next to his home near Elephant Butte Lake, remarkably evading law enforcement detection for years. Jaramillo's escape revealed the full extent of Ray's criminal operation, which he carried out with his live-in girlfriend Cynthia Cindy Lee Hendy. According to Jaramillo, she had met Ray and Hendy through an acquaintance in Albuquerque, agreeing to engage in sex work. However, Ray and Hendy used a badge to pose as police officers, arresting and kidnapping Jaramillo before subjecting her to 3 days of horrific sexual torture, including rape, electric shocks, and whipping. After Jaramillo's escape, another alleged victim came forward, stating she had been kidnapped and held captive for 4 days in February 1999. This woman, an acquaintance of Ray and Hendy, was abducted after visiting their trailer, stripped of her clothes, and repeatedly sexually assaulted and tortured. The investigation into Ray's crimes uncovered a trove of disturbing evidence at his residence, including over 1,000 items such as photos of apparent abuse victims. Authorities believe Ray and Hendy had extensive experience in these crimes, and that there were potentially more victims, though no bodies had been discovered at the time. The investigation soon expanded across 10 states, with over 100 leads as officials searched for evidence of other crimes committed by Ray. Despite being sentenced to over 223 years in prison, Ray only served a few months before his death from a heart attack in 2002 at the age of 62. His live-in girlfriend Hendy faced reduced charges and was released from prison in 2019 after serving around 20 years. The horrific case of David Parker Ray, known as the Toy Box Killer, highlights the disturbing reality that such atrocities can go undetected for years, underscoring the need for increased vigilance and stronger protections for vulnerable individuals. Inside Ray's Toy Box trailer, they discovered an array of restraints, whips, knives, medical tools, including a gynecological exam table, cameras, handcuffs, and other torture devices. A sign on the wall read, "Satan's Den," hinting at the horrific nature of the crimes committed there. Chillingly, Ray would videotape his victims as they were restrained to a table and subjected to prolonged tortured sessions. He even had a pre-recorded message where he outlined his plans to treat the victims as sex slaves and then drug them to erase their memories. As a result of the investigation, another man, 27-year-old Dennis Roy Yancey of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, was arrested on April 9, 1999. Yancey was a known associate of Ray and Hendy, and he was charged with the murder of 22-year-old Marie B. Parker, who had disappeared from an Elephant Butte salon in July 1997. Yancey claimed he killed Parker in Ray's trailer, stating that he had done so on Ray's order and that he and Ray's daughter had lured her into captivity. David Parker Ray was also suspected in the disappearance of 22-year-old Jill Troya, who was the girlfriend of Ray's own daughter, Jessie. Troya was last seen with Jessie in Albuquerque in the fall of 1995. During the investigation, another victim was identified through a video found on Ray's property. This woman had a distinctive tattoo of a bird on her leg, had gone missing for a few days before reappearing in a disoriented and distressed state. She claimed that in late July 1996, she had been held captive by Ray after being taken to his home by his daughter Jessie. The woman, who was living in Truth or Consequences at the time, testified that she was held at knife point, handcuffed, and subjected to sexual abuse over the course of 2.5 days. In April 1999, it was ruled that there was sufficient evidence for Ray to stand trial on 25 counts, including kidnapping and criminal sexual penetration. He would face 3 separate trials, one for each of his known accusers. The first trial, for the 1996 abduction of the Colorado woman, resulted in a mistrial due to the jury's inability to reach a unanimous verdict. However, the case was retried in April 2000, and Ray was found guilty on all 12 counts. In July 2001, Ray pleaded guilty to kidnapping, rape, and conspiracy to kidnap in the case of Cynthia Vigil Jaramillo, the woman who had bravely escaped his captivity in 1999. This plea deal was reportedly made to protect his daughter Jessie from being implicated. Tragically, the woman who claimed she was kidnapped in February 1999 died of pneumonia before her case would be tried, and the charges were dismissed as part of Ray's plea agreement. In September 2001, David Parker Ray was sentenced to over 223 years in prison for his crimes. As part of the plea deal, he agreed to cooperate with authorities and share more information about his activities. However, when the time came to meet his investigators, Ray refused to cooperate. Shortly after his conviction, he gave an interview claiming he never committed any crimes against women, stating, "I get my excitement from making a woman happy," a deeply disturbing and contradictory statement in light of the overwhelming evidence against him. Despite being sentenced to over 223 years in prison, David Parker Ray only ended up serving a few months behind bars before his death from a heart attack in 2022 at the age of 62. His live-in girlfriend, Cynthia Cindy Lee Hendy, faced reduced charges from 25 counts down to just 5. Hendy pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to kidnap, 2 counts of accessory to kidnapping, and 2 counts of accessory to criminal sexual penetration. She was sentenced to 36 years in prison but was released after serving 20 years in July 2019. Ray's daughter, Glenda Jessie Jean Ray, was also implicated in the crimes. She was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison and 5 years of probation as part of a plea agreement for her role as an accomplice in the torture cases. Despite never being charged with or convicted of murder, David Parker Ray is frequently referred to as the Toy Box Killer. A spokesperson for the FBI told a local journalist in 2011 that the Bureau considered Ray a murderer. Around that time, there was a resurgence of interest in the case as the FBI released photos of items found at Ray's residence and asked the public for help in identifying more potential victims. The renewed interest was likely spurred by the news that Ray had written in his own journals about having 40 victims, some of whom he may have murdered. The journals contained graphic descriptions of torture, though it's unclear if these were accurate accounts or merely fantasies. Handy also told investigators that Ray had killed at least 14 people and disposed of their bodies around the lake, but no bodies were ever found. In 2011, authorities discovered a foot-long piece of femur which was sent for analysis. However, in 2013, they stated that the bone could not be identified. As recently as 2014, a retired New Mexico State Police Commissioner asserted that the agency believes there are undiscovered remains, but they have yet to locate them successfully. How did David Parker Ray evade detection for his horrific crimes for so long? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you have had any scary encounters, share your experiences with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to FearFlex for more videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you at the next one.